Okay. Who is this woman that does not actually much look like this? She is, well, an author, and you may have heard some of her works. Jane Eyre, The Professor. Okay, now do you have a clue? It's Currer Bell! No, I'm kidding. Although Currer Bell is the same person as Charlotte BRONTE. Let's get started. Da 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 Charlotte da 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 BRONTE da 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 Dark Sean. Hi guys and welcome to a new episode on this Dark Sean episode, and let's get started with today's episode because today we are talking about Charlotte Bronte, one of the most famous English literature authors of all time. She has written a lot of works such as Jane Eyre and The Professor, and it's just, for a lot of critics today, as much as it is for a little bit of a pie to be a crumb. So if Jane Eyre is the pie, then the rest of English literature, which is lamer than Jane Eyre, is the crumb. I'm not sure you can get it, but today we're not talking about that. We're talking about her life. And interestingly, I found a lot about her. And when I was watching this YouTube channel's Video Royalty Now Studios, it was an interesting episode, as they have modernized the, Charlotte Bronte with Photoshop, and it's pretty good. And I'll have to say, if Charlotte Bronte was real and living right now, she could have looked like this. It's pretty good, and pretty good royalty now. But back to her life. This photo of her, a little bit of a sketch of her, is, I found this on Pinterest and it was called just Bronte. So I used it, and I'm going to use this as Charlotte Bronte's little photo. However, this may not be very accurate and a lot of people still dispute this, so yeah. Let's stop talking about her portraits and get into her real life. She was born on April 21st of 1816, and it was in the 19th century, which makes sense since her writings were in the 19th century style. She was also born in Thornton, Yorkshire, and her father was Patrick Bronte, and her mother was Maria Bronte. She was formerly Maria Runwell. At the age of 5, her mother died. And so after that, her father had sent her all the way to this place called the Clergy's Daughters' School in Cowan Bridge. It was poor. It had a lot of poor conditions, and it really needed a bit of a speck of dust cleaned up. Because of the poor conditions, her older sisters, who went to the school with them, died because of the poor condition at the school because of tuberculosis. That's how you pronounce it. Eventually, she was able to get her revenge on the poor conditions of the school by writing Jane Eyre, but we'll get to that later. After attending that school for a year, and during that year, her sisters died. It's the same year that her sisters died. Her father had them pulled out of that school, and then they were homeschooled. That was when she started liking to write. Although that wasn't how much that her first job could even get, she decided to go to become a governess. And I'm pretty sure you're thinking of a governor, but a female governor. But that's not what governesses are. Governesses are basically like the women tutor who have a bit of education and just go to another family so that they can live there and teach their pupil. Yeah, the student is called the pupil. Have we weirded out by it too? She went to a very high and mainly notable family who always humiliated her a lot. Mama, 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 na 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 na. She said it herself that this was not her type of work. She did not enjoy it at all. That's when her aunt died and gave the Bronte sisters, just before they died, enough money for them to pay their debts. Oh yeah, by the way, Charlotte was the oldest of the Bronte sisters. After that, they were able to pay their debts. The Bronte sisters wrote a poem book. And what was the poem book about? They wrote poems by Kerr, Ellis, and Acton Bell. They used these male pseudonyms so that their writings would not be prejudiced. Kerr was Charlotte Bronte. Ellis was Emily Bronte. And Acton was Anne Bronte. And Bell was the Brontes. And you can guess why they could have chose these names other than the first letters as their last name and their first names. After this, they revealed themselves as women, and that's how we know that Kerr, Ellis, and Acton Bell were pseudonyms. This book was not successful as they had hoped to be, but as they never gave up. Charlotte went up to write Jane Eyre. And mainly why I keep forgetting to say that Charlotte is not Jane and saying that Jane is Charlotte is because this Jane Eyre is mainly an autobiographical sketch onto it. Like Lowood School in the Jane Eyre book itself is mainly based on the clergy daughter school that Charlotte Bronte herself attended. And as the book suggests, Lowood School had very poor conditions. Another one thing about Jane Eyre is that Charlotte Bronte is a lot like Jane Eyre, as Jane Eyre has been a governess, as Charlotte has been. And then they really hated the governess job. Charlotte wanted to marry her teacher, who turned out to be already married, so that was frick. And then for Jane, she tried to marry her master, Mr. Rochester, but after realizing that he was married too, see the similarity? She couldn't marry him at all. And it's all documented in this movie version. And I think you'll like it. Next up, she published The Professor. However, she died before The Professor was even published. This was her first manuscript, but other people were like, hey, I don't like it, so write something else. And that's where she came the idea with Jane Eyre. After she died, her friends helped publish The Professor on Charlotte's name. She married to a man that she didn't love, just a new clergyman that replaced her father. And after that, Elizabeth Gaskell wrote The Life of Charlotte Bronte, which had a lot of inaccurate facts. Such as the thing that one of the inaccurate facts was that Charlotte loved her teacher so much that she, was in a way sort of mad for him, and that she technically was a mad woman. I didn't read the book myself, so I'm not sure what it was talking about, but it was said to have a lot of inaccurate facts. Speaking of which, Charlotte Bronte died on March 31st of 1855, just before her 39th birthday. So she died at the age of 38. Well, that was a shame. Her cause of death was pneumonia because of some pregnancy problems and complications. She died on 1855. Emily died on 1848, and Anne died on 1849. She was the last Bronte to die. And yeah, we will always remember her. And don't forget, there are some dots on top of their E's. And forever we'll cherish their books, as they are now known as classics of English literature. Other than Jane Eyre, Emily Bronte even wrote Wuthering Heights. Yes, I know. These three Bronte sisters have wrote their own books. It's notable, and even their characters are now known throughout English throughout English literature. Even a poll has been said that Mr. Rochester has been the most romantic character, and he won more votes than any other books. And that is how we will end this episode. So please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Like this episode, and then click the bell button. Click either of these two episodes, please. See you guys next time. Sign out. Peace.